To you, the NHS, the BBC, the black cab drivers of London, and social housing in relatively wealthy parts of town, what do they all have in common? All four of them. Black cab drivers, the BBC, the NHS, and so-called social housing in wealthy parts of town such as Kensington and Chelsea. What do they all have in common? They seem to offend the political sensibilities of people who believe that if investors aren't getting a dividend out of something, if people who aren't doing any work aren't making a profit out of property or somebody else's work, then something's wrong. People despise the fact that the NHS is essentially still nationalised. They despise the fact that the BBC has epic amounts of money swashing around and none of it is making its way into the coffers of a Murdoch or a Rothermere or a hedge fund. They hated the black cab drivers having the audacity to earn a decent living as self-employed individuals without any of that money being handed from passenger to cabbie making its way into the pocket of an investor. That's where Uber came from. Uber, an organisation that could never have robbed the cab drivers of London of their livelihoods without government connivance. And you don't need me to remind you that the wife of one of David Cameron's key advisors was a fairly senior member of Uber until relatively recently. So, you know, that's NHS, BBC, Uber, cab drivers. What's the other one that I said? Social housing in rich areas. What did we learn last time we spoke on Tuesday? Well, what was the grim and grisly lesson that we learned together? That they are actually and actively moving poor people out of salubrious parts of this city and preventing them from moving back in again. A compulsory purchase on your social housing that then, after redevelopment, is on an offer to you for roughly twice the price that you got for the compulsory purchase of your last place, which means you can't afford it, which means you're not moving back into the borough, which means you've been socially cleansed. And it goes on. You know, I've mentioned allotments to you. Google allotments and property developers and see whether or not that was another false prediction. They look at stuff and they hate the fact that there's no money being made. So the push from the media for this BBC stuff to be published came from the Daily Mail and Rupert Murdoch, both of whom hate the fact that they can't make any money out of the BBC.